What's up, deckheads? It's May 2025 and Humble Choice is back at it again with another bundle of games to test your skills and possibly your patience. But is this month's bundle worth your cash or just plain trash? As always, I've whipped out my deck, gotten all hands on and given it a proper workout. That's right, all these games are reviewed on the Steam Deck to tell you just how well each game plays on Valve's portable gaming device. And of course, somewhere in this video, we have the winner of last month's Steam Key giveaway to announce. Want a key as well? Leave a comment with the key you want for another chance to win in next month's Steam Key giveaway. Okay, without further ado, let's get started. The Thaumaturge is like Disco Elysium went to Eastern Europe, picked up a cursed degree in spirit summoning, and decided therapy was for cowards. You play as a magical detective in turn-of-the-century Warsaw who solves mysteries by seeking out personal trauma. Imagine a detective game where your best leads come from guilt, regret, and unresolved issues. So basically, a family gathering, but in Warsaw. Gameplay blends detective work with some slick over-the-shoulder turn-based combat, where your ghost buddies essentially hold your foes down while you beat them to a pulp. You'll be linking evidence, uncovering people's secrets, and occasionally breaking into full-blown mystical CSI. Certain choices feed your flaws, and in this game, being a deeply broken person is a feature, not a bug. Sure, when first booting the game, it does default to polish, and the cutscene rendering occasionally looks like someone forgot to load the textures, but it runs well enough. If you like your RPGs existential, weirdly elegant, and filled with emotionally compromised sorcerers, the Thaumaturge hits the sweet spot between spiritual enlightenment and mild moral corruption. Amnesia the Bunker drops you into the warm, welcoming embrace of a World War I death trap filled with darkness, rats, and regret. You're the last soldier standing, and there's something lurking in the shadows that's less enemy combatant and more flesh-chewing nightmare beast. Your mission? Don't die. Bonus points if you also avoid screaming in real life. Instead of showing you the monster, the game prefers the psychological torture route. You'll hear it, you'll dread it. You'll sprint like a maniac trying to refuel the generator before it sniffs out your PTSD. The lights from the generator give you a short reprieve, just long enough to loot a corpse, trip a booby trap, and wonder if this is really the relaxing horror experience you signed up for. Between the tense stealth, limited resources, and who left this fire trap in the hallway moments, the bunker nails the vibe of surviving in the worst Airbnb ever. It's terrifying in the best way and a must play if you enjoy clenching every muscle while whispering, please no, into the darkness. If you love seeing a grown man play with his deck, then hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell so you don't miss out on any future Deckhead content. Evil West is what happens when God of War takes a gap year in Texas and comes back wearing spurs, leather, and a lightning gauntlet. It's over the top, dumb in all the right ways, and packed with enough vampire guts to qualify as a blood bank. You're a steampunk cowboy punching the undead so hard they skip the casket and go straight to vapor. Combat is simple, slick, and stupidly fun. You've got dodge rolls, melee combos, and guns that fire like your uncle at a barbecue when the possums show up. Is it deep? Not really. Is it smart? Absolutely not. But Evil West knows exactly what it is. A non-stop barrage of face-punching, monster-mashing nonsense, and it wears that proudly like a belt buckle the size of your ego in high school. On the Steam Deck, it runs like a charm, bouncing between 65 and 90 frames per second, with about 2.5 hours of battery life. It's loud, bloody, and beautifully brainless. A perfect weekend brawler for when you want both hands on your deck and not much going on in your head. Shadow Gambit, the Cursed Crew, is what happens when Shadow Tactics gets blackout drunk at a Pirates of the Caribbean convention and wakes up cursed, undead, and somehow even cooler. It's still a stealth tactics game at heart, but now you're playing as a ghost pirate crew who solve problems with swords, sorcery, and zero regard for occupational health and safety compliance. It's got memory recording, which mechanically functions as quick saves, synchronized takedowns, and a cast of cursed crewmates who look like they have way too big a budget for their Halloween costumes. But between the non-linear character unlocks and ship hub, the game builds enough of its own identity to avoid feeling like a straight-up clone. The game fully leans into its undead pirate theme, including giving you zero guilt for playing lethally. You're a cursed soul commanding a spectral crew against religious zealots, not applying for sainthood. It controls smoothly on the Steam Deck, though to be fair, the devs basically Control-C, Control-V the input scheme from Shadow Tactics. Still, it works. and the colourful art style absolutely bursts through the OLED screen like a cannonball through the hull. Performance-wise, the game usually sits between 30 and 50 frames per second, unless you start recording a memory. Then it sinks faster than a submarine with a screen door. Battery life hovers around 2.5 hours, which is enough time to pull off a mission or two. If you loved games like Shadow Tactics and Commandos, but always wished they had more phantoms and parrots, Shadow Gambit is an absolute treasure.
And so,
Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes is like finding out the JRPG genre still has a few tricks up its overly dramatic sleeve. The title, which translates to Hero Chronicle 100 Heroes, may be redundant, but the game isn't. It manages to feel fresh, charming, and surprisingly engaging, even for someone like me who only likes a select few JRPGs. It's the kind of visual style that says retro charm, while quietly flexing how much better it looks than anything you played in the actual 90s. The story borrows its fair share of genre cliches, but somehow stitches them together in a way that still feels personal. Pop-up party banter adds life to your travels, and while you're exploring both world maps and towns in classic fashion, it's the depth of combat that really stands out. Sure, it's turn-based, but it features a timeline mechanic, front and rear lines, and flashy tag team hero combos that make battles feel strategic rather than sleepy. You can even automate combat with customizable AI, which is a godsend during repetitive encounters. With a whopping 67.5 hours of content, a locked 4-hour battery life, and performance hovering between 45 and 90 frames per second, this is a JRPG built for long-haul handheld play. And if you're wondering about the voice acting, yes, it's fully voiced, and shockingly, the English dub might actually be better than the Japanese. The game isn't just one of the few JRPGs that won me over, but might just be one of the best on the deck. Star Wars Bounty Hunter might be showing its age with early 2000s graphics and mechanics that occasionally creak louder than a Wookiee with arthritis, but don't let that fool you. Once you get your hands on the jetpack, the game really takes off. Scanning bounties, flying around blasting enemies midair, and turning people into barbecue with your flamethrower is pure Star Wars chaos, and honestly, it's still fun as hell. The bounty mechanic remains oddly fresh, even after 2 decades, identifying targets, tying them up, and claiming your reward like a Mandalorian before Disney got their dirty hands on you. It's just a shame all those credits are purely for points and not for actual upgrades. Talk about missed opportunities. Still, when the game boots up, just try not belting out the Star Wars theme. If that's not the sign of a fun game, I don't know what is. On the deck, Bounty Hunter is a smooth ride at 90 frames per second with a solid 4 hours of battery life. And while the mechanics can't quite match today's standards, they were ahead of their time. As someone who normally dreads these kinds of remakes, I was surprised by how much I enjoyed this one. It's not perfect, but it nails that nostalgic sweet spot, which is why I'm awarding Star Wars Bounty Hunter the Grower, Not a Shower award. It's time to announce the winner of last month's Steam Key giveaway. Congratulations to Icaro Corvine on winning the highly coveted Ori key. Make sure to reach out to the Reddit user Decusheadus via chat to claim your key. As for the other users, don't worry if you missed out on a key. Leave a comment with the key you want for another chance to win in next month's Steam Key giveaway. Ultros is a psychedelic Metroidvania that looks like it was illustrated by a sleep-deprived botanist tripping on Dutch fruit smoothies. The neon-soaked visuals are a feast for the eyeballs, and while the story keeps its cards close to its chest, the mysterious setting pulls you in like a sentient plant with abandonment issues. Exploration is typical. Earn new abilities, access new areas, but it's all wrapped in a vibe that feels genuinely fresh. Combat is slick, and enemies drop food like you're in some kind of intergalactic MasterChef deathmatch. But these don't just function as health pickups. Each meal provides a unique balance of nutrients that you can cash in for upgrades at save points. Yes, Ultros literally turns clean eating into character progression. Add in a gardening system where you plant seeds at designated spots to grow fruit, and you've got the first Metroidvania that makes you feel like you're a part-time nutritionist and part-time landscaper. On the Steam Deck, Ultros runs between 53 and 60 frames per second, with about 5.5 hours of battery life, making it a strong performer for portable exploration. I have played more Metroidvanias than I care to admit, and most blur together, but Ultros stands out, not just because of its unique mechanics or visuals, but because it dares to be weird, wonderful, and just a little obsessed with what's on your plate. Corpse Keeper is what happens when Darkest Dungeon and a fighting game get drunk together in a graveyard and decide to smash uglies. The combat is surprisingly deep, with mechanics like fainting that make it feel more like Street Fighter Necromancer Edition. It's fast, brutal, and surprisingly strategic for a game where half your team is already decomposing. That said, the gameplay loop does start to feel a bit repetitive. Also, there's a day timer that supposedly matters, but after playing for an hour, I still have no clue what it actually does. On the Steam Deck, Corpse Keeper holds steady between 48 and 50 frames per second, with about 2.5 hours of battery life. It plays well enough to raise eyebrows and plenty of corpses, but you'll probably know pretty quickly whether you're digging it or just digging graves. Alright, we've gone through all the games, but now it's time for the big question. Is this bundle worth your cash or just plain trash? Before we jump into the final verdict, if you're enjoying these reviews, then like and subscribe so I can keep justifying my crippling gaming addiction as content creation and not avoiding real responsibility. This bundle is packed full of games with great gameplay, and personally, that's what I look for most in a game. Sure, some of them might not be to everyone's taste, but I think that every user will enjoy nearly all of the games in this month's bundle. See you next time, Deckheads.